Hi, my name is Amanda Seewald, and I am the owner of Maracas Language Programs and Learning Kaleidoscope Educational Consulting. I'm also the author of the Maracas Easy Reader series and the president-elect of the Joint National Committee on Language. I'm thrilled to be here today. What does it mean when someone says, find your voice, or where does it come from? And where do you find it? Your own personal narrative is the greatest tool you have. Just like that old board game life, each experience and choice you make builds the story of your pathway through the world. When we share language and culture, the perspectives we grow empower our perspectives and our abilities to make a difference, to make decisions, and to solve problems. The power of your voice, amplified through action and interaction, can take you and your ideas anywhere. I hope that today I can share with you what I've learned about finding my voice. And through my story, I hope to also provide you with ideas to help you amplify yours. Ikigai. This is one of my favorite concepts coming from Japanese. It's what moves us personally and professionally. It's the way that our lives and experiences play a role in the decisions we make every day as humans. It's what gets us up in the morning. It is Ikigai that drives us. And in most recent times, it's what calls us to step into challenging situations and make things happen. Ikigai puts us in a position to speak up and share with others. It's what we find to be our purpose. It is the perfect intersection. Ikigai is our passion. An intersection. An intersection is where things meet or cross. Over time, I've come to the conclusion that the ultimate form of advocacy is to incorporate your passion and your belief in a cause or an ideal into the personal and professional road you're on every single day. But I didn't know this before. It's come from years of reflection on experiences, choices, and challenges that have guided me. Let me tell you a bit about how I came to know that language was at the center of my life and how and why I'm an advocate. Today, I speak Spanish, French, and Japanese. But I grew up in a monolingual family, and other than a sprinkle of broken Yiddish that my grandmother knew, no one in my family spoke another language. My first real connection to the drive of language learning happened when I was about 8 years old. I went to visit my grandparents, and their friend's daughter was there. She was deaf, and I wanted so badly to be able to communicate with her. I asked my mother to please get me a book so I could learn. This was way before the internet, so books were the thing. This is my Sesame Street sign language book with Linda Above that I used during that year to teach myself enough sign language to surprise my friend Shelley the next year. I can tell you that the feeling and reaction that she had and that I had when we first realized that it worked was just incredible. And I believe it was the first time I realized that language and communication needed to be a part of my life. I didn't get to study language formally until middle school and high school, as is common in the United States. But when I finally did, I just loved it. And the rhythms of Spanish inspired me to want to take on more. I wanted to take Spanish and French. However, this is where I had my first real obstacle. A principal in a small high school didn't see the value of taking 2 languages and did not want to allow me to adjust my schedule for it. My parents and I did all I could, and I decided that as a sophomore in high school, I would take French 2 nights a week at the local community college. I wouldn't let this person stop me from what I truly felt I needed to do. This was my first dose of self-advocacy and problem solving en route to my goals. Taking that risk empowered me in my senior year to enroll in a college-level Japanese course at Rutgers. I was on my way to what some might say was an odd major. At NYU as an undergrad, I studied Romance languages and East Asian studies. All 3 of my languages were at the heart of my studies every day. I won a unique summer scholarship to do an independent study in Madrid about Sephardic Judaism, where I had access to libraries not often available to the public. With my hands on ancient texts written in Ladino, with Hebrew letters that I recognized and Spanish phrases that I recognized, I experienced an exhilaration as well as a sense of incredible loss for a culture and language. It made me more aware of the disconnect and loss that I felt, not knowing about the language of my own Eastern European ancestors. It also moved me to know that languages needed to not only be spoken, but to be protected. My junior year, my life changed forever when the National Security Education Program was introduced. After reading an article about it sent to me by my grandmother, I immediately figured out how to apply. This was going to be my chance to study in Japan. But once again, like in high school, I was met with an obstacle. A dean at the university did not like the fact that the money was coming from the Defense Department, so she refused to sign off on my application. I was deflated, but this was so important to me, and I felt that I could not let one person stand in the way of my dreams. I advocated. I made calls, I went to multiple offices, and eventually I was able to apply. I was selected as one of the first 300 students in the US to receive a Boren Scholarship, and I embarked on a summer in Japan where I met a family that broke every stereotype, crossed every cultural bridge, and welcomed me into their culture and their language with more compassion than I could have ever imagined. They took me in as their own, and they remain a part of my life nearly 30 years later. But as with each step of my story, things changed when I returned, and I was contacted because the program was already being threatened by congressional cuts. I was called on to represent the program and speak about my experiences at large board meetings in New York City and Washington, D.C. I was even interviewed on television about my story. Suddenly, advocacy was very much a part of my college life and my entire life. And as I watched the impact that my simple story about language learning had on others, I felt empowered. Thankfully, the NSTEP programs not only still exist, but have grown and will celebrate 30 years next year. So before I even graduated college, I knew that my life was about people and language and communication and advocacy, but I still didn't have any idea where that would land. But let's put my story aside for now, and let's talk about you and your future in the world. Where do you see yourself in our world? Are you building, creating, designing, or writing, maybe reporting or researching, or taking care of others? Wherever you see yourself, even if your vision for yourself isn't clear yet, know one thing. Any and all that you choose to do and pursue in the future will require you to connect and engage globally. Demand for bilingual workers in the world has more than doubled. Employers seek bilingual workers for both low and high skilled positions. As language learners, you are on a trajectory that others are not, distinguishing yourself through your dedication to meaningful and culturally connected communication. Companies are actively seeking the skills you're building. Technology and the drive of innovation have us closer than ever to other parts of the world and to other people. This drive toward the world through technology and economic growth has created a challenge beyond words as we now confront a crippling pandemic worldwide, halting travel and much interaction. We will need to reconnect. Meanwhile, education is actively moving in a global direction, finally embracing the need for world engagement through language and culture in our classrooms by way of technology and interactive learning. Schools across the country are building and reimagining their models to incorporate global learning. The more that our educational experiences focus on inquiry and problem solving, the more innovators and boundary-breaking ideas our world can create. It's our responsibility as world language speakers to be thought provokers. It's time to engage all students in being global citizens and taking up that mantle of collaboratively working to find solutions to worldwide issues. But you see, the tie that binds our education, technology, and the future of our society is our ability to communicate. You have that strength in the palms of your hands. What we know for sure is that language is about so much more than jobs. It's about people, human connection, and perspective. We communicate to make an impact. We raise our voices to speak words of human rights and solidarity and sustainability. Our words can be a prelude to our actions, and the more perspectives that languages provide us with, the more we can find ways to catalyze change. To me, advocacy for meaning language education across the US to achieve national multilingualism and a globally focused citizenry is the heartbeat of all of my work. And it's somehow a part of every step I take. It is part of the actualization of my Ikigai. What is an issue that's close to your heart? And how can you use your language skills to make a difference? Over the last decade, I've been privileged to have the honor of speaking to rooms full of students and their parents and their teachers about the value of language learning. communication, and cultural connections at different times in our history. From the tsunami in Japan to the uprising for freedom in Egypt, to the Hurricane Sandy and beyond to the issues of social justice and human rights that we focus on today. We've discussed friendship, technology, international diplomacy, commerce, education, and study abroad, advocacy, compassion, careers, and perspective. The choice to live as a global citizen is a decision to grow your language learning and cultural knowledge and harness it as you become an expert at knowing all kinds of people, places, and world issues. The choice to live as a global citizen is the recognition that pictures like these mean more with words, and that words mean more if followed by action. As I work with advocates, I encourage them to take stock of all of the hats that they wear. And there are many hats that we wear every day in our lives, especially as educators, or as students, and certainly as parents. Taking a personal inventory of all the building blocks of who you are is essential to becoming an advocate for whatever it is that is your interest. Advocacy happens at all levels, from local to national levels, and the way you use the connections you have in your life and let your experiences guide you will make the difference. For example, here in this slide, you can see all the different ways that we can advocate in all the different places. I use some of these examples because they've made the difference. Asking for a picture when you get to visit a member of Congress, asking for the opportunity to meet with people, being ready when you're asked a question to give a succinct answer and explain your position, brainstorming and learning from your friends and colleagues so that you can get different perspectives. And always remembering who you know and what they do. You never know when that high school friend is going to turn into a well-known journalist who can write an article that helps your cause. That happened to me. Do your research. If you're going to meet with someone to advocate, know everything you can about that person. Where you went to college just might come in handy. Also something that happened on my way to getting the seal of biliteracy passed here in New Jersey. And finally, teach your kids, your students, your own children, and the people around you to speak up as well. It is so important. So, speaking of stories, I want to tell you that the reason I am here today is because of the next part of my story. After college, I did some work for the World Wildlife Fund. I worked for a program called Bailey's Making the Grade, where there were children from all over, there were over 75 languages spoken in a 2-mile radius. And I worked with them to develop after-school programs to support the families who were coming there, many refugees and many immigrants in that area. It was just inspirational. In World Wildlife Fund, I worked in the Latin American division, and I was able to see the amazing things that they're doing there to change our planet. And then I was introduced to the Arlington Public Schools Dual Language Immersion Program. When I saw the Dual Language Immersion Program, it changed my life. I looked at it and I thought, well, if this is what education can be, then I want in. And I never thought I wanted to be an educator until the day I saw that. But from that monolingual upbringing, I became a dual language immersion teacher in Arlington. And then from there, I had my daughter and moved back to New Jersey, where I created my own program called Maracas. I published my materials, I started classes all over, and I published music and now easy reader books for children. In addition to that, I worked with teachers and still do work with teachers around the country and in Spain to help improve their skills. And one of the most important things that I do is I advocate at the federal level in the halls of Congress. Every year I go and I work with members of the legislature to help improve language policy and to help us improve the opportunities for language learning across the United States. It is one of the most important and cherished experiences that I've ever had. And it really has stemmed from all of the experience I've had growing up. Teaching students, teaching teachers, here and abroad, publishing books, all of it to bring language learning to life in meaningful ways. That is my Ikigai. My family continued to grow, and I have done my very best to provide my children not only with a strong second language foundation, but also with the knowledge that they have people who are part of our extended family, our world family, as a result of the journey that language learning has given me. To me, there is no greater gift I can give my children than that of knowing the world and the innate hunger to know and learn about and with people in other places with other perspectives. And the understanding that the sharing of language and ideas leads to endless possibilities. I know you're here because you know how important language is. Now I encourage you to think about how to put it to work for you, to help achieve your goals, and to help you engage with the world. Figure out what makes you tick. What drives you? What is your Ikigai? When I think of language, I find that certain words truly grip me. Sometimes they're silly, but fun sounds like mitsubachi, which is honeybee in Japanese, or peut-être, maybe in French. Or other words are just perfect in one language, but you can't translate them directly into another clear word in your language, like kibishi in Japanese. Or some words just sound like what they mean, like alma, which is soul in Spanish. In English, I find that the words that have the most meaning in my life and that kickstart my linguistic fire are collage, kaleidoscope, mosaic, prism, potpourri, technicolor, empower, engage, connect, and energize. I realize that these words are really about how I see myself, my place in the world as a woman, as a teacher, as a mother, as a US citizen, and most importantly, as a world citizen. Never more than now have these words been ringing in my head as I meet with educators and parents, as I teach professionals or children, and as I interact with friends, colleagues, and neighbors. These words remind me that I am a part of something larger than myself. What words remind you of what you think, believe, and about what it means to you personally to be part of the world? If you don't know yet, dig deep, think about it. And once you do, figure out what those words are and own them, act on them. Language proficiency and the concept of biliteracy are more than essential skills that will definitely put you in the more qualified pile of applications for universities or career opportunities. Language proficiency and biliteracy are a badge, an emblem. It's your personal logo. It's a flashing neon sign that says, I see you, I hear you, I want to know you, I want to help you, and I care. Bring your languages to bear as you prove that your generation can be the one that defines a peaceful, empathetic, and successful world path where collaboration is a product of linguistic and cultural understanding. Bring the ideals of strength and diversity back to the forefront and prove that our world, our country, and your community are comprised of humans of all shapes, colors, and sizes who can care, share, and grow in ways we haven't yet imagined. Aim for that seal of biliteracy, which takes your language proficiency to the next level and lets the world know that language is the key to the house of culture and social and economic empowerment. See language as a vehicle for learning other things. Go abroad or seek out other linguistic communities around you. Then volunteer. Find out what makes you tick. Explore Global Citizen, organizations like Global Citizen, and other online resources to find out how you can engage. Embrace the technology that makes your world broader and use it so as not to isolate yourself or place you in a static space. Keep your world dynamic. Language, you can use language to embody empathy and do not stand for or accept those who do not, or who seek to place language and cultural diversity in a negative light. It's your job to stand up to that. Walk out of your house every day, literally and figuratively, and know the people, places, challenges, triumphs, and possibilities by proudly wearing that sign that lets people know who you really are. What I mean to say, and I hope you will do, is to keep talking, keep learning. Find a child or the family that isn't sure or seems like they're in need of linguistic help, and be a communication leader. Your adventures will be endless. The wealth of humanity you encounter daily will make your soul rich, and the life you discover will help you find your voice and use it to catalyze change, innovation, and peace in our world. As President-elect of JNCL Nicholas, I want to personally invite you to join us as we raise our voices together in support of language education policy with members of Congress in Washington, D.C. This year, for our 40th anniversary, our annual advocacy event is all virtual, so you can join us from wherever you are. Follow the link here or visit languagepolicy.org to register. Thank you so much for letting me share my story with you today and talking to you about how important it is to empower your voice and grow your voice in this space and let the world know how important language is. Let everyone know how language learning can foster great change for our future. Thank you so much.